For millennia, humanity has gazed into the great mystery of death and asked a single, burning question: what happens next? The idea of reincarnation, a soul moving from one life to another like a traveler changing clothes, is a familiar and often comforting answer. But what if I told you that the Buddha taught something entirely different? Something far more subtle and profound. He spoke not of reincarnation, but of rebirth. And the difference between those two words is not just a matter of semantics. It is the very key to understanding the entire nature of reality, the cause of our suffering, and the path to ultimate freedom within the Buddhist tradition. In this video, we will carefully untangle this ancient and often misunderstood teaching. We will explore the river-like flow of Buddhist rebirth and contrast it with the soul's epic journey in other great spiritual traditions. By the end, you will see with absolute clarity why the Buddha's teaching was so revolutionary, and why he might as well have said, "Rebirth is not reincarnation." Understanding rebirth in Buddhism, rebirth, or Punabhava in the ancient Pali language, is a cornerstone idea in Buddhist thought, offering a unique and deeply insightful view of the continuity of existence. It is crucial to understand from the outset that this is not about a permanent, unchanging soul moving from one body to another. Instead, it points to the ongoing, ceaseless flow of experience, a dynamic process of change, cause and effect, all woven together in a fabric of profound interconnectedness. This interconnectedness is explained by one of the Buddha's most fundamental teachings, dependent origination, or paticca-samuppada. This teaching shows how all things, from a single thought to the entire universe, come into being not in isolation, but because of a vast and intricate web of causes and conditions. Imagine a vast, shimmering spider's web covered in morning dew. If you gently touch a single strand, the entire web trembles. A vibration on one side is instantly felt on the other. This, the Buddha taught, is the nature of reality. A change in one area inevitably affects everything else. This profound interconnection is the very basis of the Buddhist perspective on existence. We often think of ourselves as a single, unchanging entity, a solid self that lasts through time. Buddhism presents a radically different understanding. It doesn't speak of a soul, but of a stream of consciousness, or citta santana. This is not a fixed thing, but an ever-changing process, a continuous flow of experiences. Like a river, this stream is made up of component parts: citta, the foundational mind or base awareness; cetasika, the mental factors like feelings, perceptions, and intentions that color and shape our experience; and vijnana, the specific awareness that arises when a sense organ makes contact with an object, allowing us to recognize it. This stream of consciousness is not a fixed identity. It is more like a single, continuous wave in the ocean. The wave has a temporary form and identity, but its essence is the entire ocean. It is a pattern of energy, not a separate object. Our actions, words, and thoughts create what Buddhists call karma. Karma is not a cosmic system of reward and punishment meted out by a divine judge. It is a natural, impersonal law of cause and effect. As fundamental as gravity, it is the imprint of our intentions. Every intentional act, whether of body, speech, or mind, leaves a potential, a seed, in our stream of consciousness. This karmic energy then ripens and shapes our future experiences, much like a seed that, when given the right conditions, grows into a plant. For example, a person who consistently cultivates kindness, generosity, and compassion is planting seeds of well-being. Their karmic stream will naturally tend toward experiences of peace and happiness. Conversely, someone who consistently causes harm through anger, greed, or cruelty develops tendencies towards suffering and unhappiness. The harvest is not a reward or punishment. It is the natural, inevitable result of what was planted. Buddhism explains that it is this process, this conditioned stream of consciousness, that moves from one life to the next, not a self. This is the essential idea of Anatta, all, no self, the solid, continuous self that we believe in is a concept, a useful story we tell ourselves. It is a collection of fleeting, ever-changing experiences, thoughts, feelings, memories, and bodily sensations that we bundle together and label me. It's like a mirage in the desert. It seems real from a distance, but upon closer inspection, it is an illusion. The Buddha was clear. There is no permanent, unchanging soul that is reborn. It is the flow of consciousness, conditioned by karma, that continues. Misunderstanding this and clinging to the illusion of I or the ego is the root cause of our suffering. Finally, understanding rebirth has profound implications for how we live our lives right now. By practicing mindfulness and meditation, we can begin to experience this truth directly. We can observe the constant arising and passing away of our thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. We see for ourselves the river-like flow of consciousness and notice how it is shaped by our past actions and habitual tendencies. This is not a matter of blind belief, but of direct, experiential seeing. Through this direct insight, we can understand the teachings on rebirth and discover the path to freedom from the endless cycle of suffering. Reincarnation. In other traditions, the concept of life continuing beyond death is a recurring theme across many of the world's great spiritual and philosophical traditions, often manifesting as the idea of reincarnation. However, it is crucial to understand that these notions of reincarnation differ significantly from Buddhist rebirth, primarily in their understanding of what it is that continues. These traditions typically share a common thread, the belief in a permanent, unchanging soul or self. In early Hinduism, the concept of the Atman is central. The Atman is regarded as the true, immortal essence of an individual, an unchanging and eternal core. It is often described as a spark of the divine, Brahman, residing within each person. Reincarnation, in this context, is the process by which the Atman transmigrates from one physical body to another upon death. Like a person changing clothes, the goal of this long journey is not merely to continue existing, but to eventually break free from the cycle of birth and death. samsara, and reunite the individual Atman with the universal Brahman. This ultimate liberation, or moksha, is achieved by accumulating good karma through virtuous actions and devotion, and by gaining a deep understanding of one's true, divine self. Ancient Greek philosophy also explored the concept of an immortal soul. Plato, for example, posited the existence of a soul that is distinct from the physical body and is capable of existing both before birth and after death. He viewed reincarnation as a process by which the soul, which was initially perfect and possessed innate knowledge of the forms, perfect ideals, becomes entangled in the material world and undergoes a series of lives. For Plato, the purpose of these lives was for the soul to purify itself from the ignorance and attachments that come with being embodied, and to regain its original state of perfection through the pursuit of philosophy and reason. The Sikh tradition introduces the concept of Atma, which is also seen as a spark of the divine that resides within each individual. Similar to Hinduism, Sikhism views reincarnation as a continuous cycle of birth and death, with the Atma transmigrating from one life to the next, its future existence determined by the individual's actions in their current life. This process continues until the Atma finally achieves mukti, or liberation, by merging with God. This ultimate goal is achieved through devotion, meditation on God's name, and selfless service. In all of these traditions, the core, unifying concept is the belief in a permanent soul, a stable, unchanging essence that is the central character in the epic journey through multiple lifetimes. This soul is the constant entity that moves from life to life. This is fundamentally different from what the Buddha taught. He pointed not toward a permanent thing, but toward a flowing process, not toward a soul, but toward a continuity of experience. It is this very distinction that is the key to understanding the uniqueness of the Buddha's teaching. Key differences between rebirth and reincarnation. Rebirth, as taught by the Buddha, completely rejects the concept of a permanent, unchanging self, offering an entirely different and radical understanding of continuity, one grounded in the core principles of impermanence and no self. The Buddhist teaching of Anatta is paramount here. It is not merely an abstract philosophical concept, but a fundamental insight into the nature of reality. Anatta does not deny continuity. It asserts that what continues is not a fixed entity, but rather a constantly changing stream of consciousness, conditioned by causes and actions. This stream of consciousness is a dynamic flux of mental and physical experiences. It is not something that can be pinned down and identified as a single, lasting thing. This difference in understanding has profound implications for the nature of suffering and the path to liberation. In traditions that posit a permanent soul, suffering is often seen as a result of the soul's entanglement with the material world, or as a karmic debt that needs to be resolved over multiple lifetimes. The path to liberation, therefore, often involves purifying the soul through righteous actions and devotion, so that it may finally achieve union with the divine. In Buddhism, however, suffering is understood to arise from our attachment and clinging to the powerful illusion of a permanent self. The path to liberation, therefore, involves uprooting this deep-seated attachment by cultivating wisdom and letting go of the illusion of I, me, and mine. The ancient text, the Milandarpana, illustrates this difference beautifully through the analogy of a flame. Imagine lighting one candle from the flame of another. The flame of the second candle is clearly caused by the first. But is it the same flame? No, the wax and wick are different. Yet, there is an undeniable continuity. The energy, the fire, has been transmitted. This is a powerful metaphor for rebirth. What continues is a flow of energy, a process driven by cause and effect. But there is no movement of a fixed, unchanging thing. This entire process of rebirth is driven by what the Buddha called sankharas, our deep-seated mental formations, our volitional habits and tendencies, both conscious and unconscious. They are the engine in the ship of consciousness, constantly propelling it forward from moment to moment, and from life to life. Understanding these formations is not just a philosophical exercise, it is the very key to steering the ship and achieving liberation. But what exactly are these sankharas, and how can we work with them to change the direction of our karmic stream and ultimately find freedom from the cycle of rebirth altogether? That is the practical and profound journey we will embark on next. We have now established that what continues from one life to the next is not a soul, but a stream of consciousness propelled by our deep-seated habits and tendencies, our sankharas. To help us grasp this subtle and profound process, the Buddha offered a beautiful and simple analogy from the natural world, an image that perfectly illustrates this flow of continuation without a fixed, unchanging self. The analogy of a mango tree, as presented in the Potthapada Sutta, provides another powerful and useful perspective. Consider the life cycle. A seed is planted and, with the right conditions, it sprouts and grows into a magnificent tree. That tree then yields delicious fruit, and within that fruit are more seeds, each containing the potential for a new tree. There is a clear and undeniable flow of continuation. The seed is not the tree is not the fruit, and the fruit is not the new seed, and yet an unbroken chain of cause and effect, of pure potential, links them all in a seamless process. The seed does not carry a fixed, unchanging self to the next stage, but it contains all the necessary information and potential for future growth. Just like this, the stream of consciousness carries the karmic potential for future experiences, but it is not a solid self that is moving from one stage to the next. Therefore, the key divergence, the great fork in the road between rebirth and reincarnation, lies in their opposing views of the self and, consequently, the path to freedom. This profound difference has a direct and tangible impact on how we understand our place in the world and the ultimate purpose of our actions. These are not just different philosophical concepts. They are vastly different views of reality, each demanding our serious contemplation. Understanding the process of death and rebirth. The process of death and rebirth, as understood in Buddhism, is not the dramatic event of a soul leaving one body and searching for another. It is a much more subtle and natural process. the simple ending of one set of conditioned experiences and the immediate beginning of another. This ceaseless transition is driven by the accumulated karmic energy shaped by our past actions. It is a complex process, but one that can be understood through the Buddha's teachings and by looking deeply into the workings of our own minds. At the very moment of death, the final moment of consciousness in this life arises. This is known in the Pali texts as the Kuti Chita. This is the last flicker of this life's candle. Immediately following it, without any gap, a linking consciousness known as the Patisandhi Chita arises, which is the very first spark of consciousness in the next life. This linking consciousness is not random. Its nature and destination are directly conditioned by the most potent karmic energy from our past life. This powerful karmic force drives our stream of consciousness into a new existence. Its character and conditions entirely dependent on what we have thought, said, and done before, the five aggregates, the components that we mistake for a solid self, physical form, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness, are not permanent. They are in a constant state of flux, always changing. This is especially true at the moment of death, when this temporary arrangement dissolves. The physical form, our earthly vessel, ends. The senses stop functioning, and the mental formations lose their direct connection to the physical brain. What remains is not a ghost in the machine, but the accumulated momentum of our karma, the latent potential for new experiences. This is not a transfer of a soul. It is the continuation of a process based entirely on cause and effect. The Chattaka Sutta shows how consciousness itself plays a role in this process. The Buddha explained how consciousness is not a standalone entity, but rather it arises from the interaction of the senses and their objects. At death, as the physical sense bases dissolve, this form of consciousness also dissolves. This teaching powerfully demonstrates that our everyday consciousness is not fixed or permanent. It is dependent on conditions. When these conditions end, this consciousness ends and, in a single, seamless moment, gives rise to the linking consciousness. This Patisandhi Chita is the beginning of our new existence within one of the various realms. These realms of existence are not necessarily physical places, but can be understood as states of being, great landscapes of the mind, determined entirely by our karma. They are often divided into three main types: the realm of sense desire, the realm of form, and the formless realm. Within the realm of sense desire, there are 11 distinct realms. These are states of being that are heavily influenced by sensual experiences and desires. The lower realms within this category are states of great suffering. They include the hell realms, which can be understood as a state of mind consumed by its own unrelenting anger and hatred. There are the animal realms, marked by instinct and ignorance. There are the realms of hungry ghosts, which is the psychological experience of insatiable, gnawing craving. And there are the asura realms, characterized by constant conflict, jealousy, and paranoia. The human realm is also here, a uniquely precious state that offers a rare and balanced opportunity to create both positive and negative karma, and most importantly, to attain enlightenment in this realm of sense desire, there are also 6 heavenly realms, which are filled with immense sensory pleasure and delight. However, these are still temporary states, like a wonderful vacation that must eventually end. Rebirth here is still a part of the endless cycle of suffering. All samsara, the realm of form, has 16 distinct realms, where the mind is highly focused and refined, and experiences are far less connected to the gross physical senses. Here, beings experience profound states of joy and peace arising from deep states of meditation. Or jhana, beings in these realms have achieved these higher levels of concentration through dedicated meditation practice in their past lives. Finally, the formless realm has 4 realms where only pure consciousness remains. The mind is completely free from the limitations of a physical body, and experiences here are purely mental. These sublime realms are reached through the deepest levels of meditation and are filled with an expansive, boundless peace. Beings here have transcended the physical body and experienced the highest levels of concentration. Understanding this map of consciousness has a powerful effect on how we live. By observing our own thoughts, feelings,
and perceptions with mindfulness, we can see how our present experiences are the seeds for our future ones. The impermanence of everything we experience in this moment is part of the same flow that continues after death. Understanding our present experience can help us to understand the nature of rebirth. Mindfulness can help us see how our habitual thoughts are shaping our destiny. Moment by moment, through this direct observation, we can understand impermanence, let go of our attachments, and prepare ourselves for all of life's changes, which ultimately includes death itself. This understanding helps us to face the fear of death not as an annihilation, but as a natural transition. Knowing this encourages us to live well, to live with kindness and intention, knowing that our every choice deeply impacts our stream of consciousness and our future experiences. Therefore, death and rebirth are not great mysteries to be feared, but natural processes we can navigate with wisdom and clarity. Modern understanding and daily practice. The Buddhist understanding of rebirth is not just an ancient philosophical idea. It has profound and practical implications for how we live our lives today. In this modern world, modern science, while not yet fully able to explain the deep phenomenon of consciousness, has begun to explore the nature of the mind and its intricate relationship to the body. This exploration offers some fascinating perspectives that align with certain Buddhist teachings about the interconnectedness of mind and body, while also demonstrating how much we still have to discover about the true nature of reality. From a Buddhist perspective, the key to a meaningful life is not about frantically searching for a better rebirth. It is about cultivating wisdom and compassion right now, and learning to let go of the powerful illusion of a fixed, separate self. The understanding that our actions have consequences is not a call to fear a future punishment, but a powerful call to take responsibility for our lives in this very moment. When we recognize the tangible impact of our thoughts, words, and deeds, we are naturally encouraged to live more ethically and mindfully. creating the conditions for well-being for both ourselves and for everyone around us. The teachings on impermanence, no self, and the law of cause and effect are not abstract theories to be debated. They are direct insights into the nature of our own moment-to-moment experience. Meditation is the laboratory where we can directly experience these truths for ourselves. Through the simple, yet profound, act of mindful observation of our thoughts, feelings, and perceptions, we can begin to see how these experiences are constantly changing, how they arise and pass away like clouds in the sky. This direct seeing helps us to let go of our attachments, to find a greater and more stable peace, and to see the reality of our lives with clarity. There are many stories, both ancient and modern, of people who have recalled past lives. While these stories can be intriguing, the Buddha himself consistently emphasized the importance of focusing on the practical aspects of the teachings that lead to liberation now, rather than getting caught up in speculation about the past or future. The key is to live fully and wisely in the present moment. In the famous Malankhyaputta Sutta, the Buddha addresses a monk who is caught up in all sorts of metaphysical speculations about the universe. The Buddha uses a powerful analogy, saying it's like a man who has been shot by a poisoned arrow but refuses to have the arrow removed until he knows the name of the man who shot him, what village he is from, and what kind of wood the arrow is made of. The Buddha's point was clear. The man would die before he got all his answers. The urgent task is not to have every theoretical question answered, but to pull out the arrow of suffering. Therefore, the understanding of rebirth is not about becoming someone else in the future. It is about transforming who we are right now. This involves actively cultivating wisdom, compassion, and ethical conduct, thereby creating positive conditions for ourselves and for the world. It includes practices like meditation and mindfulness, which provide a direct method for seeing the ever-changing flow of our own consciousness. The Buddhist path is about finding freedom, peace, and well-being in this very life. This does not mean that the teachings on rebirth are unimportant. They are deeply important because they show us how our actions impact the flow of our consciousness and our experience of reality. The path is about transforming our experience by changing our habits and by understanding the nature of our own mind. This is precisely why Buddhist practice is so profoundly relevant for living a life of purpose, meaning, and true freedom. So, the Buddhist teachings on rebirth provide us with a rich and profound framework for understanding the nature of our existence, our place in the great cycle of life and death, and the path to liberation. It is not a doctrine that demands blind faith, but an invitation to look deeply into our own experience. It encourages us to live with awareness, to act with compassion, and to cultivate a wisdom that is both timeless and deeply practical. It points us toward a life lived with purpose and meaning, free from the heavy burden of a fixed self, and grounded in the liberating understanding of cause and effect. This is a deep and profound teaching, one that invites quiet contemplation. To help integrate it, I invite you to reflect on one small action you can take today, an act of kindness, a moment of patience, a mindful breath. that you know will plant a positive seed in your stream of consciousness. Share your intention in the comments below, not as a performance, but as a commitment to your own path. If this deep dive into the heart of Buddhist wisdom has offered you clarity, please like this video to help this knowledge reach others, and subscribe to our channel for more explorations of these profound truths. Let us continue to walk this path of awakening together. Thank you for your deep attention and for your presence with us today.